Hey guys, I'm IzDaisho and I'm here bringing you some Hearthstone, and today we're going to be playing an arena. I thought that I had different choices, but anyway, yeah, what should I do? I should probably do Druid, because that's the one that I am best at. Of these? I don't know. Yeah, I'll do Druid. Haven't done a straight up arena run in a while, so I figured I'd do a regular one, no stipulation here, just standard good old arena, taking Sunwalker's first pick because it's the best card in the pack. It's an interesting choice. So, Marked Nature is not really a powerful card. I'm sorry, I'm going to clear my throat one more time. That's better. No, it's not. That's worse. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, we're moving through this. Ironbark Protector. This card at 8/8 taunt, really expensive, but when you go down to like the actual games, if you get to 8 mana and start resolving giant creatures, and your opponent is just going to have to use a lot of resources to kill them most of the time. I mean, sometimes they'll have a Polymorph or a Hex or something like that, or even an Assassinate. But for the most part, 8/8 taunts start winning you the game when they start coming down. This guy's going to be a lot more consistent in being a 5-drop, but I think I'm going to go with the Ironbark Protector here. The main concern here is that I'm going to end up with too much top end, but I can also kind of fix that by playing some Wild Growths and Innervate. So in the early game, I'm going to hedge, and I'm going to go, not going to hedge, it's the opposite. I'm going to go big, and I'm going to hope that this ends up working out for me. So without any cheap creatures, Shattered Sun's a little bit awkward, but Gurubashi Berserker is just not very good in a Druid deck. I only am willing to play this in Mage and maybe Priest, but pretty much just Mage. And Ancient Brewmaster is just an awkward card a lot of the time. You want to be curving out, and then when you finally drop this guy, then it's not that good. If you drop it and you have no creatures and your opponent has, then they can often trade pretty easily, especially if they have a hero ability that does damage. And there's just a lot of times where this card's not great, even though it has a pretty oversized body as a 5/4 for 4 mana. But I'm going to take this Shattered Sun Cleric here and hope to pick up some cheap creatures. So, with Young Dragonhawk just being a useless card and Magma Rager being a useless card, I'm forced to take Priestess of Elune. This card is not good either, and I already have expensive cards, so if there was any like 2/2 for 2 garbage cards, or even like Razorfen Hunter or Dragonlane Mechanic, cards that I normally just hate, I would have taken them over this Priestess of Elune, but here, no real other options. Okay, so Magma Rager and Stone Tusk Boar are similar to the other two. Young Dragonhawk, this guy's a little better than Young Dragonhawk, but Bluegill Warrior is a fine card. It's not good, but it's playable. Now, this is an interesting decision. So Moonfire doesn't really come into play for me. I just don't think that the effect is powerful enough, which is interesting because 0 mana cards in Hearthstone tend to be very, very powerful, almost regardless of what they do. This is just basically taking it to the extreme, kind of like Wisp, where it's just the very least you can possibly do for a 0 mana card, and I think it's an interesting design choice to have these kind of cards in the game. But for the arena purposes, I don't really think that it's worth playing. So Spiteful Smith is just a 4/6 for 5, which is a reasonable body. I mean, it's not insane, but it's okay, and it's obviously not going to get any better. But without any early drops, or really just this one Bluegill Warrior, which you don't really want to play on curve unless you can trade it right away. You just want to play it when you can trade. I think I'm going to take the River Crocolisk here, even though it's a mediocre 2-drop. Another interesting decision. So Grimskill Oracle is probably one of the worst cards in the arena in general, so it's not even going to come into consideration. But Acolyte of Pain versus Cultmaster. Cultmaster is a little bit more of a powerful card overall, but that's if you have a lot of aggressive creatures. I already have 3 creatures that work kind of well with Cultmaster, and Acolyte of Pain is just consistently an average card. In this deck, it's probably not going to draw me more than just 1 card, but sometimes drawing the 1 card is good enough. That being said, I think I'm going to go with... actually, this is a tough one. But, yeah, Druid does end up getting a decent amount of draws sometimes. But, not even that often. Occasionally it does. Either way, both these 2 cards are similar in that they're utility creatures that are meant to gain me advantage, but not really give me board presence. This guy at least has 4 power. I don't know. I guess I'll take the Cultmaster, but I think it's a really close pick. Whew, Naturalize or Oasis Snapjaw. I usually don't like to play Magma Rager, again, not in the consideration. I usually don't like playing Naturalize. It just gives your opponent such a huge advantage. You really want to be taking over the game by playing giant creatures, and then you have Naturalize sitting in there, which is just, for the long game, it'll give your opponent more of an advantage than you're getting by playing your big creatures. In an aggressive deck, Naturalize would be a lot better, but I think in this deck it's kind of unplayable. So I'm going to take this Oasis Snapjaw, even though it's not a great card. But, it does stuff. Okay. I mean, it trades for creatures, it kills 2-drops, it just doesn't really match up well against other 4-drops. Anyway, Boulder Fist Ogre or Gnomish Inventor. I already have 3 cards that are 6+, so I'm going to take this Gnomish Inventor for now. I think Boulder Fist Ogre is a better card, though. Okay, so of these 3, Arcane Golem doesn't really fit the style of the deck. I'm trying to build a slower deck and not really trying to burst damage people out. Secret Keeper is really terrible, and Mind Control Tech is a pretty good card. I mean, you can play it on curve, or you can play it in the late game to gain an advantage that no other card can provide. I mean, stealing a creature is just something that very, very few cards can do, and being able to do that for a cheap price and really come back from games that you would have had no chance of winning is just a unique effect and something that I like. Alright, so Chillin' Yeti is better than, obviously, Wisp, and probably better than Swamp Ooze. I only have 3 4s. It's not like I have way too many 4-drops already, even though the Cursor looks like it because it's pretty balanced overall. I only have 1 more 4, and I'll have 2 more after this. I really do want to pick up 3 drops, but Chillin' Yeti is too good to pass up on. Alright, well, these 2 cards, again, are average. I mean, they're better than a lot of the cards that I had access to. I'd probably take either of them over Oasis Snapjaw or Priestess of Elune. But yeah, I'm gonna take another Chillin' Yeti just based on power level. I'm a huge advocate of trying to draft for curve and make sure that you're not just taking the best card in every pack, because sometimes then you'll end up with a really bad curve. And in the arena, so much more so than constructed, than the play mode, you really need to focus on your curve, because a lot of the times games are just going to be won because your opponent coined a 2-drop on turn 1, then played a 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop, and you're like, well, I played Chillin' Yeti on turn 4, but I didn't have a 3-drop, so all I did was gain 2 life, and then they're just like, okay, well, I'll just trade my 2 guys and then play another big threat, and you really can end up way far behind. That being said, Stormwind Champion may be a little better than Power of the Wild, but not much. Power of the Wild is pretty much better than Direwolf Alpha in most circumstances. There are going to be decks that you'd rather have Direwolf Alpha, but there might not actually be any. So Shield Bearer is not a card that I'm looking to play ever. I don't like it in Constructed. I don't like it in play mode. I don't like it here in Arena. Booty Bay Bodyguard, same thing that I was saying about Ancient Brewmaster, is if you're playing this guy, usually you play Taunters to protect your minions, and then this guy, sure, he'll protect your minion for a turn, but you're just spending a lot of mana and not getting too much of a body, and you'd much rather it be a 4-5 or a 4-6 or something like that. So this guy is not in consideration. I'm going to take a Bloodfin Raptor as another 2-drop to give myself an aggressive deck. So Doomsayer is a really interesting effect. Most of the time it either gets silenced or just killed. That being said, occasionally it can be a really powerful card, because since it happens at the start of your turn, it's kind of an advantage because your opponent can't play anything on their turn, and then you get the first creature on board, and you have all your mana to play whatever creature you want. So it sort of does give you a pretty big tempo advantage, and especially if you can 1-for-1 it, or even get more than that, more value than that, then it's actually a pretty sweet card. Molten Giant is a huge creature, but a lot of the time what happens in the arena is if you have a chance to play this card, then your opponent likely has a much bigger board than you, and they can either just trade a couple of creatures or they can just kill you the turn you play it. So I'll take the Blood Knight. It's a 3-drop. I need 3 drops. You almost always need 3 drops, and occasionally it can be really powerful. So it's kind of like the perfect card for this kind of deck. So Wild Growth is going to be my pick here. I didn't end up with too much top end because I've been avoiding it, but with a Wild Growth, that definitely leads me to do that more. Also, Frostwolf and Young Dragonhawk are really bad. Taunters without good stats are not good cards. The only time you want to play a Taunter is if it already has reasonable stats. And Young Dragonhawk just doesn't do enough on its own. So, alright, I'll take a Nourish here. After picking up a Wild Growth, that's a really good pickup. Probably not going to use it to gain the 2 mana crystals, but drawing 3 cards is sweet. Twilight Drake's also a pretty good card, but I do have 2 Chillin' Yetis and Gnomish and Oasis, so already a bunch of stuff that I want to play on turn 4, and I have no 5-drops. I don't really like Questing Adventurer. Occasionally you can have a deck where it's really good, either in Warlock or Rogue if you have some backstabs or Soulfires, and you can often get a lot of advantage out of it, but I like that better. Swipe. Moonfire, still bad. Ironfur Grizzly, again, Taunter without impressive stats. It's got average stats, but if it were 2-4, I'd probably play it. Same thing with the Silverback Patriarch. Obviously it would be the same card, but if they made it a 1-4, if they made it a 2-4, I think it would actually see a lot of play in Constructed. But just because it has underwhelming stats without it, you basically just ignore the ability on a Taunter, and if you can't play it before then you don't. If it's got more toughness than power by a lot, then you can consider playing it, but then of course you go to the Mogashin Warden, and then that's too far. So I'm going to go ahead and take this swipe. I'm going to go ahead and take this swipe again. Lord of the Arena again. Not really a thing that I'm looking to play. You can just use that baseline for pretty much any of the taunters in the set. Number one, if its stats aren't impressive, then you're probably not going to play it. Or I guess first, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. The guideline is don't take the bad taunters. I'll always play swipes, though. Okay, so really, Secret Keeper's not a consideration, so I'm either going to take a 3-mana 4/3 or a 2-mana 3/2 with a sometimes relevant ability. So the 3-mana 4/3 will slot in. I have only 3 3-drops, but at the same time I also have 1, 2. I really only have 3 2-drops, so I think I'd rather take a Wild Pyro because 2-drops are a little bit more important than 3-drops. Because you really want to start the game by getting on the board quickly. Alright, I'll take an Archmage here. Darkscale Healer might be a little bit better than Archmage in a vacuum, but I do have 2 swipes already. It's not even that many, but Swipe is just very, very good if you can get a spell damage +1. Mark of the Wild is not a terrible card, but not really a consideration here when I have a need to fill, which is the top end of my deck. So we're going to take the Tiger here. It's interesting, because sometimes when you staple 2 cards together, they become a very good card, and sometimes when you staple 2 cards, even if one of them was bad originally, sometimes when you staple 2 cards together, then it just doesn't really work out. So this is Nightblade. It's a 4-mana 4/4, which is pretty much the standard. You usually want a little bit of value past that, but 4-mana 4/4 is pretty much the standard. And then you staple on Sinister Strike, which is 1 mana for 3 damage, and you get Nightblade, 4-mana 4/4, deal 3 damage for 5 mana. It's not really that good, though. It turns out dealing 3 damage is not really worth a card, and 4-mana 4/4 or 5-mana 4/4 then is just a little bit too weak on the curve. But that being said, this card does have applications. It sees play in some constructed formats, and there are definitely some arena decks that I would love to play Nightblade in, but this is not one of them. I'll take the Tiger. Alright, so usually 1-drops don't see play because they have 1 health, and just dying straight up to 3 of the hero abilities is really, really bad. So you just don't take them very often. This thing is okay. 2 toughness for 6 mana is a little bit ridiculous, but really what you use this is a 6 mana for a 5 damage spell, which is not good, but it does things and it's playable. So again, Grimskull Oracle is terrible. This guy is also pretty terrible. Bad stats for a taunter, even though he does have the toughness. If you have 1 power, you rarely can cut it in the arena. But yeah, Spiteful Smith is alright. It's got good stats. Its abilities are relevant, but a 5-mana 4/6 is just good enough to play. So, and I do need 5-drops, so that's nice. This is a really interesting pick. I can go in a number of ways, and I think I know what I'm going to take here. So if you look at my 4-drops, I have a bunch of them. 2 of them are swipes, though, so those you don't really want to play on 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of them I don't even want to play on 4. This guy you want to play a little bit later. Then when you look at my 5s, I have only 2 that I really want to play on time. 2-drop, I think it's between these 2. Master Swordsmith is not terrible, but I already have enough 2s, and I think I'll be okay with that. So, Gadgetzan or Violet Teacher, this thing they're both pretty strong, and they both react with spells the same way, so that's not a consideration. It's just really, do I want the 4-mana 3/5 that gives me a little bit of a worse advantage than the 5-mana 4/4, which is an overcosted body, but it gives me a slightly higher advantage. I think I'm going to take the Gadgetzan. It's hard to explain why. They're very, very similar cards, and they will perform very similarly in this deck. Well, I'm pretty happy that I took the 5 there, because now I'm going to take another 4. As I said, 4-mana 4/4, as long as it gives me a tiny little upside, I'm happy to play it. And I like Ogre Magi. I don't love the card, but I think it's fine. This is a really interesting pick. I think I have enough top end. I only have 1 Ironbark Protector, but I have a bunch of 6s and a few 5s and stuff, so I think I'm going to actually take the Innervate. I also have a ton of 4-drops. Being able to play Chillwind Yeti on turn 1 or turn 2, depending on if I'm on the draw or the play, is a really, really powerful play. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Innervate here. And if I do see another giant thing, then I'll be happy. But Ravenhold Assassin is not the giant thing that I want to see. This guy isn't really a value creature. He's more of just a aggressive creature. So when I'm looking for 6 and 7-drops, I like something like Archmage, which gives me value. I can just trade it, or I can get a 2-for-1 out of it. I can kill 2 of their creatures for 1 of my card. So I think I'm just going to go with the Imp Master here. Alright. I got a choice between a couple of decent cards. So my 2-drops now, let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'll take a 5th 2-drop. I don't really want to play this on 2. I mean, this thing's okay to play on 2, but yeah, I'll take another 2-drop. And Starfall, good removal spell. I have a couple of spell damage guys, and neither of the other two are really that playable. So yeah, that was a pretty in-depth guide. I've gone more in-depth in arenas before than this, but I feel like I haven't done one of these in a while, and for those of you who are new to my channel or who miss these kind of things, hopefully that'll help out. But yeah, let's play some games. I think this deck is alright. It's got some weaknesses. I definitely had at the beginning a couple of bad packs where there were actually just very, very bad cards in it. But I think right now we're pretty decent and definitely in a position where I can win some games. Alright, we're going to stomp Sean in this game. And let's see what we can do. This is not a good hand. Doesn't have any cards that I want. I'll keep the Shattered Sun Cleric because I have 5 or 6 2-drops, so there's a good chance that I can draw a 2-drop into and just curve it straight into a 3. Additionally, what ended up happening, I could coin out this thing on turn 2 and then play this thing on turn 3. So keeping 3s is usually pretty correct in an arena deck like this. So next turn I can just drop a Spiteful Smith if I want. My opponent doesn't really have that many things. There's no like Hex in that deck. He didn't do anything this turn. I think I'm just going to go ahead and maybe I just Innervate out a Yeti. Man, some choices here. Alright, let's do that. Well, once we're here, may as well play the Spiteful Smith. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say the reasoning I did that is because next turn I'm going to have a 3. I know I'm going to have a 3. And then on turn 4, I'd rather play a 4-drop. I might draw another 5-drop between now and then. I guess I also have a lot of 4s in the deck, so I'm pretty likely to do one of those too. I don't know. Maybe I should have just done that. If I had another 4 in hand right now, I would for sure have just played the Yeti so that next turn I can coin out another 4. But just having this giant creature on board right now is super advantageous. Like, I can immediately recoup the card advantage that I lost by playing the Innervate, and I'm going to drop this guy. I'm already ahead in this game, so I think hopefully I'm going to stay ahead for the rest of the game, and this guy is not that good when you're ahead, especially because my opponent isn't playing a deck like Paladin or a hero like Paladin or Shaman that can generate tokens very easily through its hero ability. And then a lot of those times that's where you get your best mind control tech value. You don't really want to hit the token, the 1/1 or the totem, but a lot of the times you can get one of their other bigger creatures, and those just add to the count so that they do have 4 creatures, so you can steal one. That being said, this game is going very well for me right now. That's a non-issue right here, and even with Mark of the Wild, it's not really an issue. I have a couple of ways to deal with that situation. Both of them involve mana though, so I'm not going to be able to play a Chillwind Yeti here. So I can either shapeshift and do that, but shapeshifting is really bad here because I have no other play, so I'd rather do this. We'll trade here, and then I really got my value out of that. So, I mean, I used half of this card, but essentially I traded my Spiteful Smith for 3 and my Innervate for 3 of his cards. I guess it wasn't really too big an advantage. The biggest advantage was the tempo advantage. I mean, if you look at the board right now, I have 2 creatures on it. My opponent has 0. So that is definitely the best part of this situation. That being said, my creatures aren't so powerful. My opponent could easily play like a Druid of the Claw here and get the 2-for-1 right back. Then I'll still have a Chillwind Yeti and I'll still have the tempo advantage, but I'll no longer have card advantage. Okay, there's a swipe. And an Innervate. Wow, is he really just going to Innervate out a Shapeshift here? Okay, so yeah, I mean, he just 2-for-2'd, but he used an Innervate and a swipe to kill a Mind Control Tech and a Shattered Sun Cleric. That's just not a very good trade on his part. Gadget Sand, not going to be as good as a Chillwind Yeti without any spells in hand. It's still a consideration to play it just because of mana efficiency. I mean, I wasted a crystal here. So, for instance, next turn, well, he's going to get some card advantage back. So, for instance, later on in the game, if I want to play, like, for instance, even this turn, if I wanted to play, I mean, I have another Chillwind Yeti in hand, but if I didn't have another 4, then it would be more of a consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and play the 2 smaller creatures. Generally, you want to play the bigger creatures, but just because of the way that this works out, Stunwalker also gets a lot of advantage if you play it when your opponent has stuff out and they want to kill your creatures. This thing obviously you don't want to play, but just a reason why I should have played the Sunwalker is because next turn, just to play as many things as possible in a turn, I can play a Gadgetzan and a Shapeshift, or I could have played a Gadgetzan and a Bloodfin, but now I'm basically going to have to just play a Sunwalker here, and I'm not going to be able to use any other abilities. If I had played it last turn, then I could have played, I don't know, maybe this and a 5, or this and a 3 if I draw one. So there's just a lot more options available to you. Yeah, I think in this position, not gonna be crazy or anything. It's always a decision of what you want to trade. Do you want to trade the smaller creature, or do you want to just keep more creatures on board? Since my opponent is playing Druid, the only sweeper that really hurts me here is Starfall, and he's unlikely to have Starfall because that is a rare, so I'm not really going to play around it. Naturalize. I accept completely. I mean, I'm already winning this game on tempo, so him giving me 2 cards is just advantageous for me, even though he does get to trade favorably. And just a Dark Iron Dwarf. Okay, so here I have a couple of options. This is one of the reasons why Reckless Rocketeer is so bad, because it's 2 more mana and it's just going to trade for that. Let's see. Might just be better to play this thing and Shapeshift. I think that's going to be the case. I do lose some mana efficiency. Alternatively, I could have, again, just played the bigger thing, just played this 8-drop. It would have been fine, but at this point I can't really make too many mistakes. In fact, I think that this game, it's arguable that I played it really incorrectly and I took bad lines. But at the same time, once I played the early creature, the Spiteful Smith, the game was all but decided unless my opponent had a really good way to deal with it. Okay, so Lord of the Arena is not really too much of a concern. I'm just going to go ahead and play this. Well, okay, so I'm going to play this, and then my other play this turn is just going to be Power of the Wild to make a dude. So first I'm going to do that because it is a spell, so it'll trigger this. It's unlikely that I actually find a better use of my mana than to just trade my 6-drop for his 6-drop, but it's always good to look at all your options, make sure that you have seen every possible avenue that you can take this turn before you actually make a decision on which one you want to take. So he's going to nourish up here, draw a couple of cards. That's pretty good. I mean, it's the best way to get back into the game is to get more card advantage, but he also needs to deal with the stuff that I've got on board. So he's really not in great shape overall. Okay, a swipe is a good one here. And now it's going to be really important for me to play my Taunter. I guess I could pick that up too. But yeah, I think it's better to just play this thing. Well, alright, so if I play this, the only thing that I really lose to is Naturalize, and even then, I'm not too upset. So he has 7 mana and just play a bunch of stuff, but I do have a swipe in hand. Alternatively, I could just play Tiger, Imp Master, Brewmaster. I think that I am very likely to just win the game if I play the Ironbark Protector here. Even with 5 cards, my opponent is unlikely to have a good way to deal with it. I guess a swipe kind of hurts here, but a swipe would hurt the other way too. Just be able to kill my Imp Master and then Shapeshift and kill this thing, so I would just have a 5/5 out, and then he still has 4 mana to play something. But yeah, he would have to have like double swipe, or like swipe plus another burn spell. There's a Spiteful Smith of his own. He's going to follow that up with River Croc. Okay, these are not things that I'm worried about. If my opponent's just playing creatures that lose to mine, then I'm okay. Nourished. Okay, so I have 11, 15, 16 damage, and he's at 19. I mean, I could play this to draw a card, or this to draw 3 cards. I don't know. It's unlikely for me to win the game this turn, so I should probably just trade with his creatures. Basically, the idea is that if you make, so okay, so 4 over, or what, okay, let me try and explain this the right way. Right now my opponent has access to 5 cards and I have access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards. So 8 to 5 is an advantage. But if I trade, like let's say these were trades, then it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to 3 is a better advantage than 8 to 5 is. So even though I'm not going to trade and it's just going to be advantageous for me, that's what I'm going to do this turn. And I'm just going to add to my board here. And the reason I'm doing that instead of drawing cards is because the only way that I can possibly lose this game, which is already super, super unlikely, is since my opponent's so far behind on cards, is if he out-tempos me and kills me that way. So I need to make sure that I have a whole bunch of things on board so that my opponent can't kill my creatures that are on board, add to his board, and then just start dealing damage straight to my face. So this is the best way to counteract that, I think. And right now I have, what, 8, 13... 14, 15, 19. So I do have lethal 20. I do have lethal damage right now. So if my opponent doesn't put up any taunters, kill any of my creatures, or gain any life, then he's going to lose next turn. I mean, this game has been interesting. I've been ahead for so long, but it's taken a while to close it out. I think it's partially my playstyle. I definitely am slow and grindy in terms of the way I try to win these games. I don't like to take any chances, and just by grinding the game out, it's the same strategy that you use in chess. I mean, if you have ever played chess, I mean, I'm not even a good player. I played it on very, very, very small levels, but then you know that, that's actually pretty good for him. You know that you're supposed to trade when you're ahead. The reasoning is the same as this, because a smaller advantage is just going to be more useful for you, or decreasing the amount of cards or pieces or cards that each person has access to is going to be advantageous for you. Alright, so here I'm going to nourish, draw some cards. This is another swipe, so it's probably worth it to just keep my tiger on board. If I hit my tiger into that, then all of a sudden swipe is very good for my opponent. I could play Cult Master at this point, but I mean, I only have 8 cards left in deck. I don't want to fatigue. It's going to be really hard for me to lose this one. I've been saying that for a while, and it's just gotten harder and harder for my opponent to come back. The thing helped a little bit, the nourish, but he still is just so far behind on pieces or on material and stuff that it's just going to be really, really hard for him to come back. So even with a Mark of Nature, that doesn't really do anything here. Okay. Unfortunately, I still can't kill him. Okay, Power of the Wild, that's fine. Ooh. That's a good one. So, can I kill him this turn? I can play Ogre Magi. I don't think I can. I can play Ogre Magi, Wild Pyro, swipe this thing to kill it, deal 2 damage, 5, 6. So I can actually take him to 3. But I think that's still going to be the play, right? Well, okay, he's just going to concede. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the most efficient way to do this. He could concede at any time. I'm not slow rolling him or anything like that. I'm just trying to come up with the best play because there's no point in trying to make this game go longer. So by taking an extra couple of seconds on my turn, I'm gonna be saving the game overall if I can end the game that turn. I mean, I end up going faster. So we'll play one more game here, and I'm gonna keep trying to express myself as much as possible. Hopefully you guys find this entertaining and not just super boring. It's just like, Daisho, just make the obvious play. God, it's so clear. Just do this, that, and that. But I think a lot of the time I make plays too quickly, and it ends up being the wrong decision. It's not that I mean, sometimes it's the wrong decision, sometimes it's the right decision, but a lot of times there are some alternatives that I just haven't thought of, and if I look at the board a little bit longer, then I'll come up with them. But anyway, I think I'm getting better at that. It's always something that you can improve in your game. And even though, I mean, I've hit legend multiple times, I have like 72% win percentage in the arena. I can get gold whenever I want. I do pretty well generally. I still think that there are a lot of things to improve in my game. And I mean, I think that even the top players feel that way. Maybe the very, very top players feel like they're making the right decision most of the time. But nobody's gonna go ahead and say that they make the right decision 100% of the time. All right, so my opponent played an Argent Squire on turn 1. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna coin out a Blood Knight on turn 2, and be very happy with it. Just take my 6/6 and slowly back away, make sure that nobody's watching and nobody's trying to cheat me out of it. But yeah, this is awesome. I also get to play an Imp Master next turn, which is also awesome. Just curving out into 3-drop is very, very sweet. But I mean, there are things that might... Oh no! Could have had more. So much value lost. Oh no. Alright. So... yeah, I think I actually still am going to play the Imp Master. There's a consideration for me not to. So basically, if I shapeshift here, then my opponent can't kill this next turn. I'm going to have a 6/1 left over. But because I play the Imp Master specifically, I'm going to be able to use this Imp to go ahead and kill his Scarlet Crusader. He could have like a... ooh. Okay. That's still not that bad for me, to be honest. Okay, so since I have access to 4 mana, I think that the play is just going to be Bluegill Warrior, Shapeshift, hit that with my face, go down to 22. That's okay, I still have plenty of life. And then hit there. I'm going to lose the Imp Master. I'm going to have a 1/1 on board against my opponent with 4 cards in hand and access to 5 mana. So I'm going to be losing by a little bit if I do this play. Alternatively, I can lose a little bit of card advantage and gain a little bit of tempo. So what I can do is I can play this Murloc, Power the Wild to give +2 or +1/+1. I think this is going to end up being the play. I can trade here, so I still have a 2/1 and a 1/1, and then this thing will trade favorably with that. So this is just a pure tempo play. It ends up giving me more of a board presence instead of losing out. So yeah, it trades board presence for card advantage, which is a favorable trade for me when my opponent's only at 4 cards in hand and I'm at like 5, and plus 1 of the cards in hand is Nourish. Looks like it's going to end up working out for me. Couple of interesting choices here. Playing Nourish is a little bit risky right now, but I am kind of fishing for a swipe at some point, so it might not be terrible. It might not be a terrible decision. Alternatively, I can play something like River Crocolisk, run both my guys into that shapeshift and hit that. It might just be the best decision. The problem is, I would love to do that if I could also just play Nourish and clear his board of his biggest thing. Or, I mean, I could just play Cult Master and run this guy into that and draw a card. A few options here, really. So if I draw, I'm drawing into swipe 3-4 cards. 4 cards deep, 2 chances. There's a good chance that I do get it. Yeah, alright, we'll Nourish here. At some point, you just gotta make a decision. I guess I could also just consider Nourishing for ramp. And trade here. Go upstairs with that guy. Alright, so didn't end up hitting a swipe. I still have a lot of... I mean, I have a ton of cards in hand right now. I just need to start dropping big things. I'll play this Archmage, and then he's probably not going to do that. I can just trade there. He might actually kill this guy, but even if he does, I'm fine with it. And then in a couple of turns, I can play this Ironbark Protector. So maybe I should have actually just made another tempo play and used... This actually might have been the best choice. I didn't think of it until just after, but yeah, I could have played Nourish, gained the 2 mana crystals, Shapeshift, traded for that thing, and then I am so much higher on tempo than him. All he's got is a 2/2 out, and then the next turn I can play this Ironbark Protector. If I knew that I had this, then I would have been more likely to make that decision, but even so, I could have played something like Priestess of Elune and River Croc. Alright, so this is not going well right now, and if I had taken the other play, this would definitely be going a lot better. Should really looking to draw that swipe here. Because especially since my opponent has a secret out. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to play swipe, and Bloodfin Raptor this turn. Or River Crocolisk. Bloodfin. No, River Crocolisk, because I have the Shattered Sun Cleric in hand. I'm not going to play it next turn. So, yeah, River Crocolisk, because I'm suspecting this to be Noble Sacrifice, so I don't want to just straight up lose my guy to it. I can't Shapeshift next turn because I'm going to have to use my Ironbark. Alright, so I guess that'll get some work done. Okay, definitely still not in the driver's seat. My opponent has that tempo lead that I've been talking about so much, and even though I'm up on cards, only up by a little actually right now. He's got 7 to my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm not even up on cards anymore. This isn't really a full card, but alright, so he's going to be able to trade a couple of weak creatures and add more 4-drops to the board. This is really, really scary right here. It's not really helpful. Okay, I mean, I guess I'm just going to do the best I can here to put more pressure on the board, but it really is looking bad. So I'm going to do this just to get the Noble Sacrifice out of the way so that I can actually attack favorably and the way that I want to. So Sunwalker's a good draw here. Even Swipe's probably a pretty good draw here. I suspect he's going to kill this guy. Not sure about this one. He might kill it, he might not. But even so, I don't really have a good way to deal with his board. This is one of those situations where I just have no good options, and none of the cards in my hand are spells or things that interact with his board. So, okay, wow. He gave me a pretty big out to swipe here, which is really awesome. Even if he plays something, then I still, like, man, I mean, okay. I mean, I guess that does help a little. Oh, he's just going to restore health to that thing. And to that thing. My god. Okay, two restore health cards. That'll be pretty good here. Okay, so he knew what he was doing. He didn't give me an out to swipe. That was dumb. I don't have any spells, so I couldn't use my Wild Pyromancer anyway. But I should have played the Youthful Brewmaster first, because I don't want to pick this up, even though it sort of seems like it's a card that I might want to pick up here. It's actually not. But yeah, the Lay on Hands was really good there. He was able to use it to basically draw 4 cards, because healing this guy 4 is actually just probably worth a card at this point in the game. I'm still really far behind, but at least I have some life left to work with and some chances and some outs. I should have, I really should have played the Youthful Brewmaster instead of the Wild Pyromancer. Wild Pyromancer has added value past just being a 3/2 for 2, whereas the Youthful Brewmaster, his value is very limited. No, we'll see what kind of shenanigans my opponent has for me today. Man, that last turn was so powerful. At least I was able to get rid of his Dark Iron Dwarf. But okay, so there's a Hammer of Wrath to take out the Wild Pyro, or maybe even the bigger guy. I think I would have taken out the Wild Pyro. Maybe not. Maybe that was correct. Wow. Okay, good. I was about to say, if he leaves that on board, I can't really imagine that being the correct play. And an Amani Berserker. Okay, Sunwalker, no longer a great draw, but the only draw. I think that might be the only card that actually gives me a chance. It doesn't really give me a chance. I mean, he just throws a 1/1 at it, and then this, and then another 1/1, 3. So I'm not dead, but I'm far behind. Then again, if he gets this to 1 health, then that's still going to give me that out to swipe. But again, he's got 4 cards in hand, so he's just been able to use the fact that he had tempo on me to. Oh man, really need that Wild Pyro back in hand. That was just a very, very poor mistake. Because yeah, I need to have like a swipe, that'll kill all these things. And yeah, I don't see that. I don't see any draws that can actually pull me out of this one. But it was definitely very well played by my opponent from the beginning. Mind Control Tech is the only card, but even so, it doesn't do anything here. Yeah, you still got 8, 9, 10, 12, yeah. Way more than lethal. But, I mean, you don't win them all, and my opponent played that one really well. I had not such a great draw. I drew a lot of the bad cards in my deck. I did get that Blood Knight out on turn 2, which should have just been game-breaking, but yeah, it didn't work out. My opponent was pretty easily able to deal with that situation. And I wonder if I had taken a different route, if I had shapeshifted and killed that thing so I wouldn't have lost the Blood Knight early on. I can't remember exactly how that played out, but it ended up not playing out well for me. What did he do? He silenced it. Okay, so yeah, it wouldn't have really worked out better for me at all. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful day. Bye.